Have you ever noticed how the thing we desire most seems to slip away from us the more we try to grab it? As if the universe itself has a wry sense of humor, hiding what we want behind the curtain of the unexpected. But what if what you seek was already on its way to you, not because you deserved it or earned it, but because in some unfathomable way it was yours all along? Maybe nothing that is truly yours can be lost. Maybe destiny is not a straight line that you need to follow, but a cosmic dance where you and the universe are partners exchanging steps without knowing who is leading. Carl Jung said, "Everything that is meant to be yours will find you." But what does this mean, if not that there is an intelligence in the chaos, a secret order behind the apparent chance? Alan Watts would love this paradox. Because he knew that life, contrary to what we were taught, is not a problem to be solved, but a song to be danced. And like all good music, it has pauses, dissonances, moments of silence that make sense only when you stop trying to understand and start listening. Have you ever noticed how the most meaningful things in your life went unplanned? The love that appeared in an unexpected look, the path that took a wrong turn, the discovery that came from a failure. Life has a peculiar way of surprising us when we finally give up controlling it. And it's not about resignation, but about trust. To recognize that there is something in you, something beyond your name, your history, your profession, that is already deeply in tune with the movement of the cosmos. You are not a loose leaf in the wind, but the wind itself disguised as a leaf. Your deepest will, the one that comes from the silence between thoughts, is not separate from the whole. It is the whole expressing itself in the form of desire. Therefore, when you align yourself with this internal flow, things begin to move with an almost magical fluidity. Not because you forced it, but because you stopped resisting. But remember, this doesn't mean that everything that happens is comfortable or easy. Sometimes what is meant to be yours comes disguised as loss. Sometimes the right path is the one that hurts. And that's where we come into the art of delivery. Because surrendering is not giving up on life, but stopping fighting against it. It's trusting that even chaos has its wisdom. That even the moments of darkness are part of a greater cycle as the night is part of the day. You can't have the sunrise without first experiencing the dawn. And yet, even knowing this, we try to control it. We try to shape reality with our petty desires, forgetting that we are part of a vast organism much larger than any plan we can draw. And then we get frustrated. We suffer. But suffering, Jung said, is the path to individuation, to the true encounter with oneself. It is through that which unstructures us that we discover what we really are. And this being cannot be achieved through effort, only revealed through surrender. You can spend your whole life chasing something that is already within you. And the irony is that the moment you stop chasing, the moment you sit still and watch, it appears. Like a flower that only blooms when no one is looking, like a whisper that can only be heard in silence. It's not that the universe is hiding things from you, it's you who's screaming too loud to hear him. You don't need to chase your destiny. You are destiny in motion. With every step you take, not only are you moving, but the entire world is reorganized around you. This isn't magic, it's perception. It is the recognition that you are not separate from the flow of existence. You are not a visitor here, but an essential part of what is happening. As the wave is part of the ocean, you are part of life. Not just living, but being lived. The big mistake in our culture is to think that we must conquer life, that we must conquer love, success, inner peace. But all of this is already available when we stop demanding and start tuning in. Imagine trying to listen to a song while frantically turning the radio dial. All you hear is noise. But when you stop and listen, it's there. Always has been. The same is true with what is yours. It's coming at you at just the right pace along the road you may not even know you're on. Do you remember the last time something wonderful happened? Without you planning it, That meeting, that opportunity, that moment when everything seemed to fall into place, it wasn't because you followed a map. It was because for a brief moment you were exactly where you needed to be, not outside, but inside yourself, in the state of presence where life really happens. And the most beautiful thing about it all is that nothing needs to be forced. The river does not push its waters. The sun doesn't need to remember to rise. The bird doesn't need lessons to fly. Everything simply happens because everything is in its place, doing what it was born to do. You are like that too. But he was conditioned to forget, believing that you need to become something when in fact you just need to remember what you are. Everything that is meant to be yours is not a prize that is won, but a memory that is revealed. And he finds you not because you looked right, but because you stopped hiding, because he dropped the masks, the roles, the armor, and allowed himself to be who he really is. And when you allow yourself to be who you are, without pretensions, without strategies, without trying to control how others see you or how the world should work, something curious begins to happen. Things that once seemed so far away begin to come closer. The right people appear, situations unfold naturally, and what you called coincidence begins to seem more like synchronicity. Jung spoke of these synchronicities not as mere coincidences, but as manifestations of a hidden order, a connection between the internal world and the external world. And maybe the entire universe is dancing this invisible dance with you, just waiting for you to get into the groove. But getting into a rhythm is not about doing more, running more, trying more. It's listening. It's noticing the subtle signs. It's trusting that even in moments when nothing seems to make sense, something in you is being reoriented towards the path that is already yours. Because what is yours, in fact, does not need to be ripped away from life. He reveals himself. It flourishes in its time like everything that is alive. It's not about merit. It's not about effort. It's about tune. It's about realizing that the universe is not an indifferent machine, but a living organism of which you are an integral part. And as a part, you are already included in its movement, its abundance, its flow. You are not here to prove your worth. You are here to express what you are. And when that expression is genuine, the world responds. See, you don't have to worry so much. The fear we feel of losing what is ours comes from the illusion that we need to control everything to be happy. But what if happiness is just the opposite of that? What if true peace lies in letting go, in trusting, in realizing that each moment, no matter how chaotic it may seem, carries within it a wisdom greater than any plan we could create? The secret is not to force, but to allow. Not in running, but in stopping. Not in shouting for the world to hear us, but in being silent enough to hear what he is saying. Because when you silence, you listen, and when you hear it, you understand, and when you realize, everything changes. Not because the world has changed, but because your way of seeing the world has transformed. And that's all. You are not late. It's not falling behind. Your journey is unique, like that of each leaf that falls from the tree at the exact time, neither before nor after. Comparison is a subtle poison that makes us forget the beauty of our own path. We look around and think we should be somewhere else, being someone else, living another life. But this is your life, and it is perfect in its imperfection. Maybe this is what Jung meant, that everything that is meant to be yours is already looking for you, and it will find you not when you are better, more prepared, more worthy, but when you are real. When you stop pretending, when you stop running, when you stop judging yourself, when you are simply present, when you can look inside and say, here I am, no masks, no plans, just being. And in that moment, everything that was distant begins to come closer, not because you attracted it with techniques, but because you became magnetic with authenticity. Alan Watts would say that life is like playing a game with yourself. You hide, you forget, you get confused, only to rediscover yourself. And in this game, the objective is not to win, but to play. It's not about getting somewhere, but experiencing the path. What's yours is already yours. You don't need to reach it, just allow it to find you. And allowing it is an act of courage. It's saying yes to life as it is, with its uncertainties, with its ups and downs, with its silences. It's trusting that even when everything seems still, something is moving. Within you, an ancient force is awakening. A reminder of what you always were, before the stories, the fears, the expectations. Real trust is not blind, it's deep. It's the silent certainty that everything is unfolding as it should. Not how we want, but how it needs to be. And when you live with that confidence, the world changes. Not because he has changed, but because his eyes now see clearly. And in clarity, there is no more rush. There is no more despair. There is only now. And now is where everything happens. Because you see the idea that something is meant, for you, carries behind it a subtle misunderstanding. It's as if you were separated from the universe, and that universe then came to deliver what's yours, like a cosmic postman. But Alan Watts would invite us to see it from another angle. What if there was no separation at all? What if you were not a loose individual, waiting for the universe to reward you, but the universe itself, in the form of a person experiencing itself? In this case, what comes to you is not an external gift. It's the blossoming of something that has always been inside. You are not living life. You are life. Just as the apple is the expression of the apple tree, you are the expression of the whole, and there's nothing you need to do to deserve it. Because the river doesn't need to deserve to flow, nor does the sky need to deserve to be blue. Everything just is. The idea of deserve is a human invention, a way of justifying the feeling of separation. But when that separation dissolves, you see that everything that happens, including what you call loss or failure, is perfectly within the rhythm of the great dance. The dance, that's the point. Watts kept coming back to this. Life is not a military march with a fixed destination. It's a dance, and no one dances to get somewhere. We dance for the sake of dancing. With every step, with every turn, you are fully here. The same goes for life. You are not here to achieve some distant goal. You are here to move, to feel, to play, to make mistakes and get things right as part of the same game. And in this game, what is meant to be yours doesn't need to be found like someone hunting for treasure. It finds you because you have always been moving together, like two hands on the same body. But there is a subtle trap, and it lives in the mind that it wants to control, who wants to understand before living, who wants guarantees, promises, contracts, the mind that says, what if I do everything right and it still doesn't happen? To this mind, Watts would say, but who is this you who is trying to control life? Who is this who thinks he is separate from the flow? Because deep down what you call self is an ongoing story. A narrative stitched together from memories, desires, fears, a useful fiction but not the ultimate reality. Reality is what remains when all these ideas fall silent, and what remains is the now, that fleeting and eternal moment. It cannot be possessed, only lived. And everything that is truly yours, peace, clarity, direction, can only be found here, never after. Because the next is always an empty promise of the restless mind. But now is the place where you find what you've always been looking for, not as something new, but as something that was patiently waiting for your return. It's curious, isn't it? We spend our lives searching, running, collecting achievements, only to discover that the plenitude we longed for was already present in the simplest moments. In a hot coffee, in a silent embrace, in the smell of wet earth, in the little things where being reveals itself. Watts invites us to realize that the miracle of life is not in the extraordinary, but in the ordinary, seen with awakened eyes. And that's when everything changes. Not because the world changes, but because your way of seeing changes. You stop asking when will it happen and begin to see that it is already happening. You stop trying to control the river and start swimming with it. And in this surrender you realize everything that is deeply yours, not as possession, but as truth cannot be lost. Not by time, not by circumstances, not by fear, because what is true does not impose itself, does not shout, does not demand. He whispers. He waits. It flourishes in silence, and you, when you stop fighting with life, become fertile land for it to flourish. Then what seemed distant begins to manifest itself like a wave that returns to the sea after having been foam. Nothing went away. Nothing was lost. Everything is returning to its natural place, and when everything returns to its natural place, you realize that you were never truly out of it. You had just forgotten, like someone who dreams that they are lost until they wake up and remember that they were always safe in their bed. Reality is this silent security, this invisible base where everything happens, and you are that foundation. Not the ever-changing content, but the space where it unfolds. Not the choppy wave, but the deep ocean that supports it. Alan Watts liked to play with this idea that the true self is not that which changes, but that which observes the change. And when you anchor yourself in this presence, in this awareness, that simply is, the whole game of life transforms. You are no longer running after what is yours, because you understand that what is truly yours has never left you. He just hoped you would stop running, that you realized that the race itself was the illusion. And then a charming paradox arises. Everything you so fervently desired begins to come to you, the moment you no longer need it. Because in that moment, you are no longer the beggar who asks the universe, but the silent creator who recognizes everything is already here. Peace, love, direction. All of this doesn't come from outside. They are expressions of your most authentic state of being. And when you live from that center, the world can do nothing but reflect that back. But be careful, this is not a formula. It's not a trick of the mind to get what you want, because the mind will always try to transform the spiritual into technique. You'll say, so if I give myself up, things will come to me great. I'll give myself up so that everything comes. But this is not true surrender. It's just manipulation in disguise. True surrender happens when you no longer need things to come. When you realize that with or without them, you are already whole. And being whole doesn't mean not missing, not wanting, not dreaming. It means knowing that your essence does not depend on it, that your completeness is not in achievement, but in being. And this being is simple, silent, gift. He doesn't scream. It doesn't require it. He just observes, breathes, welcomes. And when you live from it, whatever is yours finds you, not because of desire, but because of attunement. Imagine that you are an instrument, and what is yours is the melody. If you are out of tune, the melody cannot manifest itself. But when you align, when you relax, let go, trust, the melody plays through you. And then there is no effort, just music, just flow. And life becomes a symphony in which you are at the same time listener, musician, and instrument. Alan Watts said that the meaning of life is simply to live, that the secret is not in finding a purpose, but in being so fully present that each moment becomes purpose in itself. There is no escape because everything is already sacred, even boredom, doubt, error. This is all part of the dance, and if you dance even when you don't understand the choreography, the universe dances with you, because you and the universe are the same. You are the space where everything happens. It is the silence before thought. It's the backdrop to the experience. And when you realize that something dissolves, the need to run, anxiety for afterwards, the fear of losing, all of this disappears like mist in the morning sun, and what remains is clarity, It's lightness. It's that feeling of being exactly where you should be even if your mind says otherwise. And then what's meant to be yours finds a home, not because you trapped him, but because you opened yourself up, because you stopped hiding behind fear, control, doubt, because you allowed yourself to be seen not by the world, but by yourself. And this vision, this silent vision of the self looking at itself, is what transforms everything. And this transformation doesn't happen with fireworks or big epiphanies. It happens in a whisper, an inside look, in an instant where everything stops, and you realize there is nothing to achieve, no end point to reach, because the journey itself is the destination, and everything that seemed lost, unreachable, distant, was just waiting for you to put down the map and simply walk. Watts would remind us of something essential here. You don't come into the world, you come with the world. As a wave is born with the ocean, you and the whole arise together. There is no original separation. The feeling of separation is a trick of the mind, an illusion created for the game of experience. But when this illusion is seen not as error, but as part of the cosmic theater, then freedom arises. Not as liberation from something, but as recognition that there was never imprisonment. You don't need to make the universe work. It already works. You don't need to carry the world on your shoulders. It turns by itself. All that is asked of you is to be awake. May it be present, may it be here, because this is where everything happens. This is where the tide of life brings to your shore exactly what is meant to come. Not before, not after. And see how ironic it is when you finally accept being where you are, without trying to be anywhere else. What you most expected arrives. Not because you forced it, but because you left space. The void so often feared is the cradle of birth. It is in the empty space that music happens, that the flower blooms, that love blooms. What's yours doesn't need to be pursued. It needs space to flourish. And that space is created when you silence, when it stops, when it becomes receptive like the earth before the seed. And then perhaps you will realize what is really meant to be yours is not a thing, a person, an event. It's a state, a way of being in the world, a frequency of being. It's when you are at peace with what you are, when you're not trying to be another version of yourself, when you are not resisting the now. And in this state coincidences multiply, the doors open, and what was sought manifests naturally because you are in tune with the whole. The river does not force its way to the sea, it flows, and you are the river, not a passenger of time, but a living stream of consciousness moving through experience. Everything that is truly yours flows towards you, not because you dominate it, but because you stopped swimming against it, because he surrendered himself to the current of existence, and in that delivery, everything aligns. And then the question changes. It's no longer when will I find what's mine, and it becomes how can I be so fully myself that everything that resonates with this truth comes to me by gravity. Because the universe does not respond to commands. It responds to vibration, to the essence, to authenticity. Watts would tell us that the universe is not a place where we are. It is who we are. And therefore what is yours is in fact what is you. There is no difference. What finds you recognizes you. What reaches you mirrors your frequency. Therefore more important than seeking is being. And be fully, not an idealized version of yourself, but the naked presence of now. So perhaps the invitation is not go after what is yours, but awaken to who you are, because when you wake up, the world wakes up with you. And everything that seemed to be on the outside reveals itself as an expression of its own center. There is no outside, there is no inside. There is only this moment where everything is possible, because everything already is. And in this moment where everything already is, where time loses its dominance and the future stops being a promise, what remains is the miracle of presence. The simple fact of being conscious, breathing, perceiving is already the encounter with what has always been yours, not as property, but as a natural expression of your existence. What is yours is not something that is acquired. It is something that is allowed to manifest, just as the tree does not force its fruits. It just grows, opens up to the light, takes root in the earth, and the rest happens. Watts said that we are all in a kind of collective hypnosis, believing that we need to do something, become someone, solve everything, when in fact life is already living us. The heart beats on its own. The air enters and leaves the lungs effortlessly. The planets rotate. The stars are born and die, and all of this without the slightest intervention from your ego. What makes you think that your peace, your path, your destiny needs your anxiety to happen? The great art, then, is to dehypnotize yourself. It's waking up from this dream of control. And waking up is not an act of strength, but of surrender. It's a deep relaxation in the now. It's about stopping trying to be and simply being. And in this state, what is meant to be yours finds fertile ground to flourish, because surrender creates space, silence invites, presence attracts, and then perhaps you will realize that everything that seemed separate, life, the other, the world, is an extension of yourself. Not the small conditioned you who carries name, past, and fear, but the vast, silent, untouched you, he who observes thoughts without being them, he who feels emotions without getting confused with them, the one who is always here deep within everything as a still, loving presence. This is the point of convergence between what we seek and what we already are. And when you rest in this, place everything that comes from outside, stops being a necessity, and becomes a celebration. You no longer seek to complete yourself, you share what overflows. And in this overflow, life gives you back everything that previously seemed unattainable, not as a response to your effort, but as a reflection of your essence. See, the universe is not testing you. It's not hiding rewards at the end of a race. He is expressing himself through you. You want to live a unique experience, yours. And the more you allow that experience to be authentic, the more the world bends over backwards to find you. What's meant to be yours, don't fight to get there. He recognizes the moment, and it arrives softly, silently, like a breeze coming through an open window. Of course, there will be moments of doubt, moments when it seems like nothing is happening, that everything is at a standstill. But even winter has its wisdom. The tree does not force spring, it trusts. And you, in the same way, can learn to trust in the pause, in the void, in the silence. Because sometimes it is in the darkness that the root grows stronger. It is in the not knowing that true knowledge is born. And here Alan Watts would smile, because he knew that the more we try to hold on to life, the more it slips away. But when we give in to it, when we let ourselves be carried away, like leaves in the wind, it leads us exactly where we are meant to be. And then what is yours finds you, not because you finally deserve it, but because you have finally stopped running from yourself. You don't need to chase life. It just needs to be a live, whole gift, and that's all. Everything that is a natural extension of this state will come, and everything that is not will dissolve, not out of punishment, but out of affinity. The universe does not impose, it invites. And when you respond to the invitation authentically, everything falls into place. And when everything comes together, you don't feel a snap, a spectacular climax. Instead, there is an almost imperceptible softness, like when the wind changes direction. And you only notice it because the leaves start to dance differently. It's not that the external world suddenly changes, but your gaze no longer carries the tension of waiting. There is no longer that rush disguised as hope. What there is a settlement, being here with everything you are without demanding anything be different. Alan Watts loved to illustrate this feeling with the image of dance of music. No one listens to a symphony just to get to the last note. and no one dances to reach the end of the song. Grace is in the middle, in the flow, in the continuous movement. That's also how it is with life. What is meant to be yours is not a final note of triumph, but the exact beat of each moment in which you are aligned with the very melody of existence. And it's not about becoming passive. Surrender is not inertia. It is awareness. It's acting without the weight of anxiety. It is moving not out of fear or ambition, but out of expression. When you live from this place of presence, what you do becomes an extension of who you are. And then the action aligns with the flow of life. The simple gesture becomes profound. The right word comes effortlessly. And the meetings, oh, the meetings, they stop being coincidences and become magical inevitabilities. There is no need to look for signs when you are the sign. There is no rush to catch up when you have already arrived. You already are, and everything that was meant to be yours, instead of being out there far away waiting for you, it was always here, revolving around your being, waiting for the moment when you stopped being distracted by false versions of yourself. What is yours does not need to be conquered like a fortress. He needs to be recognized, and this recognition can only happen when you stop running forward and start looking within, inside, not in the sense of forced introspection or methodical meditation, but in the sense of a return to simplicity, to what is before words, before concepts, to the pure moment in which you just are, without adornments, without justifications. And in that moment, there is no longer any doubt, not because you found all the answers, but because the questions lose their weight. Life stops being a problem to be solved and becomes a mystery to be lived. Uncertainty, which was once a threat, becomes a dance. And fear of the unknown turns into reverence for what is to come, because what is supposed to be yours already knows you. You know its rhythm, its silence, its smell. He doesn't get lost. Don't be late. Don't forget you. He just waits for the moment when you are present enough to recognize him. And when that moment arrives, there are no fireworks, there is no celebration, there is a silent recognition like old. Friends meeting again after a long time and not needing to say anything. They just look at each other and they smile. And then you understand, it's always been like this. Everything has always been here. There was nothing to achieve, just something to allow. The love you seek is not in someone. The peace you want is not in the future. The freedom you desire is not in a destination. All of this is you when you allow yourself to be. The whole world conspires in your favor, not when you shout your wishes, but when you whisper your truth. And so what is meant to be yours finds you, not because you overcame life, but because you stopped running away from it. And when you stop, you return to center, return to now, return to being, and there everything is possible. And then you sit down. Maybe there are still questions. Perhaps the world will continue with its noises, its demands, its labyrinths. But something in you has changed. Not a noisy, revolutionary change that demands to be shown, but a change like autumn that arrives without asking for permission, painting the leaves slowly. There is peace. And peace deep down was always what was yours. You begin to see that everything you resisted was yourself protecting yourself from the vastness that is being. And now, when you stop resisting, everything finds its place. Not because the world magically organized itself, but because your perception aligned with what already was. Everything that seemed distant now pulses within. Everything that seemed complex now dances in the simple, and what is meant to be yours no longer needs to arrive, because you have become that. You have become a vessel, presence, space, and everything that is true comes to this space not as a prize but as a reflection. You realize it was never about seeking, it was about remembering, and now that you remember, you can finally rest. Rest in the silent certainty that there is no mistake, that there is no rush, that your path is alive beneath your feet, being revealed with each step. Delivery became natural. Trust is no longer a choice and has become a state. and what is supposed. To be yours now approaches like an old friend who just smiles, without rushing, without demands, without conditions. Just recognize it, and in that recognition you find yourself. Not as someone who found something outside, but as someone who returned home within themselves. This is the end of seeking and the beginning of being. And being, you dance with life, and life dances with you. If this reflection touched something in you, remember to subscribe to the channel to continue this journey with us. Leave a like if this resonated with your heart, and share it with someone who is also looking to return to themselves. Comment below. What do you feel is truly yours and is coming to you? Let's grow together, reflect together, live with more presence and awareness. Until the next video.